Okay, good day, learners. Welcome to another our session for our subject inquiries, investigation, and immersions, or 3I, which is specifically all about our research study format. Okay, I know for certain that you already have your research topic, right? Oh, and next thing that you need to do is for us to recap what are the parts of a research study that we're going to formulate. You're going to formulate with. Okay, to start with, although the acknowledgement, abstract, or cover page, and even the table of contents that is also part of the research study is is not included actually in this presentation. However, we're gonna do some sessions on how we're going to make that one. But for now, we'll just focus on the important parts or the main parts of the research study that we're going to formulate or to create in our 3 I's subject. Okay, to start with, we'll have actually 5 chapters for our research study. Chapter 1 is all about our introduction. So this introduction or this chapter of the paper presents the problem and its setting. So probably once you're going to read the introduction, it will going to present to us automatically what is the problem that you are trying to solve within your group. And of course, at the same time, when you say setting, it includes where thus the study located or formulated. So what are the parts of the introduction? It includes all the background of the study, which I mentioned earlier. Background of the study meaning where does or what is the reason, what are the variables that you need to identify or what you're about to study with. It also includes the statement of the problem, maximum of 3 problems here since we are into practical research. Those 3 problems in the statement of the problem are the problems that you try to solve in the entire study. And of course, you come up with the significance of the study, which is the purpose, and the scope and the limitation of the study. What are the boundaries of your study? Okay. To start with, we'll have the first part, which is the background of the study. Although we'll have a separate sessions about it, we'll just have a quick overview with regards to the entire topic so that you will be refreshed with regards to the terminologies that we're going to use for the entire study. Okay, so start with the background of the study. This is actually the description that leads the reader to understand the research question and appreciate why they are asked. As I mentioned earlier, we will have just a separate discussion with regards to this one. But more or less, from the term itself, background, it may include all the things about the variable that you intend to measure for this study. Okay, another part under the introduction is the statement of the problem. So this section contains the purpose statement and the research question, which is actually I have already mentioned with a maximum of 3 questions. Of course, we have to include as well the main purpose or the purpose statement. That is why I've been asking you from the formulation itself of the research topic, you have to formulate already your purpose statement so that we'll know its main purpose and of course, and this research question that we need to post or in the statement of the problem are the 3 questions that we'll try to answer in the entire study. So probably this statement of the problem will be included under the last part of the research wherein we will try now to answer your question that you have posted in statement of the problem. Okay. Another part of the introduction is the third one, which is the significance of the study, which determines the audience who will benefit from a study of the problem and explains how exactly will the results be significant to them. Meaning, in the significance of the study, you will now identify who could be the people that can benefit in your study. Would it be the students who are the target or the sample of your study? It could be the school, the teachers, the community. At the same time, you are going to explain how does these personalities that you mentioned in your significance of the study be benefited in your study. Okay, so we have also number 4, which is the scope and the limitation. So this presents the coverage of the research in terms of location, time, respondents, and the potential weaknesses or problems within the study identified by the researchers. Okay, from the topics that you have mentioned, more or less, we are limiting our respondents into senior high school. So, in this case, under the scope and the limitation, you have to mention as well all the boundaries, to what extent that your research in terms of location, in terms of time frame, instead in terms of the people who you intend to study with, should be included in this scope and the limitation. That is why it is named as scope, because it includes all the boundaries of the research. Okay, the next one then is the chapter 2, which is the review of the literature and conceptual framework. This chapter of the paper presents the review of related literature, the conceptual framework, and the research hypothesis and the definitions. Okay, now this is actually the first, right after with the research topic. The thing that I will ask you to do now is all about the review of related literature, or all about the related literature. So what's with it? So this is a written summary of journal articles, books, and other documents that describes the past and current state of information of the topic of your research study. And as speaking, when we talk about literature, this could be all the basis of your research topic. Meaning, if it could be a basis, then you are allowed to at least copy a quotations from a certain kind of article, and you are going to put that one in your research, of course, with a proper citation as well. Now, as much as possible under the related literature, we will include at least 10 literature about your study. It should be at least the time of your study starts around 2000 and up, so that we'll consider uh, the time, I mean the recency of your of the study that is being existing. Now, what if there are no articles that is related to your topic? If that would be the case, we need to drop the study, okay? Because there might be tendencies that you are going to find it very hard for you to continue the entire study. So that is actually the purpose of the related literature. The related literature, or all the journals or books or articles that you will going um, to be gathered and will be the basis, will be the proof of the things that you will going to mention in your TIE study, especially in terms to your variables. Okay, so at least you have to mention as well articles coming from foreign authors and of course from Filipino authors. Okay, so number 2, or part 2 of the chapter 2, is the conceptual framework. This is actually the diagram that connects variables of the study with the lines, if it is a correlation, or arrows, which is if it is a cause and effect. Now, with the conceptual framework, all you have to do is for you to identify a independent variable and the dependent variable, and of course, you need to create some diagrams, the purpose of which is by looking at the diagrams, we can automatically identify what could be the possible relationship between your variables and what could be the significant um, difference between the two. Okay, so we have this concept. Another is we have also part of the review of related literature and conceptual framework is the research hypothesis if and only if it is applicable. So what is hypothesis? So a hypothesis is a prediction of the possible outcomes of the study. This is hypothesis is are statements in quantitative research in which the investigation makes a prediction or conjecture about the outcome of the relationship among attributes or characteristics. Now, this is only true with regards to quantitative research. So, if that would be the case, we'll try to give a partial or a statement or an answer or your prediction to the answer that is based on your statement of the problem. So, you try to formulate an answer, okay, your prediction for your answer, okay? So, another we have the definition of terms, which includes all the variables and sub-variables or values in conceptual framework are defined, except very common variables like grade, level, gender, school type, where the values are indicated in the framework itself. Now, in terms of the definition of terms, we have to, of course, identify or define the variables according to which how did we use the term or the phrase or the variables in the study. So, say for example, if your study is more on academic performance, you may define it based on your basis of the academic performance. If you say that it is based on the general average of the learners on the first semester, then that would be the definition of it, not the basic definition that you will going to come up, you get from the internet or from Wikipedia or from any Webster dictionary or any dictionary. So meaning, how did you use the term or the variable in the entire study? That would be the basis of the definition. Okay? So that is the definition of term. Okay, another now is the chapter 3, which includes about methodology. From the term itself, methodology, this includes now the methods, okay? So this chapter includes the research design, the sample, the instrument, the intervention if research is experimental, the data collection procedure, and the plan for data analysis. Now, prior to this video or prior to this discussion, you might already heard me saying that what is the sample of your study? What are the instruments? Or can you find already those instruments that can measure your variables? Now, in this case, we will try to answer or we will try to identify what are those being mentioned. To start with, we have the research design. So research design are the specific procedures involving in the research process, like the sampling method, the data collection, and the data analysis. In this research design, you may identify what the research design are going to use. Since we are into quantitative research, what you're going to mention is it is a quantitative research, but you have to specify whether it is what type of quantitative. It might be ex post facto, it could be a comparative, but in our case, we focus on correlational research. So you have to mention that one and describe as well what is the definition of the correlation. Okay? The data collection or sampling. Sampling method is or sampling techniques includes how are you going to identify the sample. Okay, sample includes all the persons or all of the people that is part of your study, which is also known as the respondents. So say for example, your variable, one of your variable is the academic performance of the junior high school students, meaning your sample includes the junior high school student. If the case that your sample includes, I mean in your topic includes the academic performance of the UM students or students under humanities and social sciences, then your sample are the senior high school UMs alone. Does not include as well the TVL group. Okay, so that is all about the sample. So there are many process under sampling. I bet that you already discussed that one in your statistics and probability. It might be non-probability and probability sampling. It depends on your choice. Okay, but if you were going to target the entire population, then just mention that you will include all of the target population in the scope or in the sample that you intend to use or be part of your respondents. Data collection is more on how are you going to gather the data. What are the means and ways on collecting your data? So you have to mention that one under data collection. And of course, data analysis on how you are going to analyze data. We have different ways. We have different statistical tools that you're going to use in analyzing data. The reason why I asked you to come up with correlation because it is the simplest way as we might use the Pearson or moment correlation in correlational research. Okay, we can also use the test of difference of independent sample and independent sample. It depends as well in the type of research topic that you have. That is for research design. This is actually more on the procedures that you will going to use at the same time the process on how you will going to collect the data, analyze the data, so on and so forth. Okay, the second one after the chapter 3 is all about the methodology. I mean, it's under chapter 3 is the number 2 is the sample. So I already mentioned that one. So the first step leading to the process of collecting quantitative data is to identify the people and places you plan to study. Such as I mentioned earlier, if you intend to study the senior high school students, then your sample are the senior high school students. So this involves determining which group of people you study, who specifically these people are, and how many of them you will need to involve in the study. Okay. Next, under methodology as well is the instrument. Now, I might ask you to come up with instrument. Now, I am just worried basin hatagan ko ninyo og different instrument, musical instrument. That is why I really come up with the idea of having the overview with regards to this the research study format. So, unsa ng instrument? Instrument refers to the questionnaire or data gathering tool to be constructed, validated, and administered. In our case, I will allow you to use validated instruments or questionnaires that is already you can search in the internet, as long as you will going to cite or you will going to acknowledge that those instruments or questionnaires are coming from somebody or the author itself. Okay, the reason why I will allow you to do this because if we were going to construct our own instrument, it will take too long that it will allow us to use it actually as our reference in the study, because once it is constructed by the researcher, it should be validated, and the validation process of an instrument takes a lot of process, and it takes a long time for us to finish it. So therefore, we might just utilize research instruments that is related in your study, that is also available in the internet or in any references that we have. Just do not forget to acknowledge the one who formulated or created the research by citing it in the part of your study or putting them as one of your references. Okay. Number 4 is the data collection procedure. Quick describe whose permission will be sought and arrangement to administer instrument. Describe when instrument will be administered and who will be administered them. Add details on arrangement and administration of instruments if needed. Now, in this case, you will just explain the step-by-step procedure and how you're going to gather the data. That is under data collection procedure. Okay. And of course, for number 4, which is plan for methodology, for methodology chapter, 5 is plan for data analysis, which I already mentioned earlier. So this section indicates how the data will be analyzed and reported. It should be specified the qualitative and or quantitative methods that will be used in analyzing the data gathered for the research, such as the different statistical tool that you will going to use in analyzing data. Do not worry about this data analysis because along the way I will going to help you analyze the data using different statistical tools that I have. Okay, as long as your study is more on correlational research or testing or research that could be trying to test the difference between variables. Okay, we are done with the chapter D. Next now is the chapter 4, which is the presentation and analysis of data. In reporting the results, the researcher stays close to the statistical findings without drawing broader implications or meaning from them. Further, this section includes summary of the data rather than the raw data, the actual scores of individual or result section including tables, figures, and detailed explanation about statistical results. So, in this case, it depends on you on how you are going to present your data collected. So, say for example, part of your questionnaire is all about the um, age of the respondents. So you might use a table showing how many answered that particular type of option, and then you will going to compute that one using the percentage proportion, and you try to interpret that. Okay, and of course when you have to analyze it, you have to analyze the data that you collected. You will try to base that one on the first question in your statement of the problem. So it includes result and discussion that is relevant to the first question of the research or the first variable on the study. The same is true with the second question that you presented in the statement of the problem number 2, 3, so on and so forth. Okay? So number 5, which is the last part of the research study, which is now on the conclusions and recommendations. So this chapter presents the conclusions and recommendations of the study. With regards to the conclusions, so the portion that gives meaning to the research and your results. So the objective of the conclusion section is to examine the results. So determine whether they solve the research question, compare them within themselves and other results from literature, and explain and interpret them, and then draw conclusions or derive generalization and make recommendations for applying the result for further research. So in other words, in the conclusion, it could be the summary of the data that you've been collected, and then you compare that one to the questions that you have posted or presented in your statement of the problem. Meaning, what are the results or what are the answers derived from in answering, I mean, the research questions. So that is all about the conclusion, which is more on that generalization. Okay, and from then on, once you come up with the conclusions, of course, the next now is for us to make recommendations. So, since, di ba, I've mentioned earlier that part of the significance of the study, you have to identify who could be the possible who could be the possible persons that can benefit from your study. You have to include as well some recommendations that could benefit the persons involved in the significance of the study. So you write your recommendations for beneficiaries of result of study cited in the significance of the study, which is I mentioned earlier. Okay, so you have to make sure as well that you have the concrete details of your recommendations. Okay, so that's all about the 5 chapters of the research. However, we have also to include our references, which is one of the most important part of the research study, because in the very first place, as we will going to include some details from other articles, from other journals or other books, or any article coming from the internet, and you cited that one in your review of related literature or any part of your research, then again, you have to acknowledge the person involved in this study. Okay, and you should use the APA's, the 7th edition style for referencing, which is which was already discussed during your practical research, if I'm not mistaken. So this is actually all about the research study format. By the way, the content of this research study format comes from our mass training of teachers last 2017 by Professor Galieto from Jose Rizal Memorial State University. Okay, she handed handed us all the presentation as well as the formats that we can use actually in formulating our research studies, especially in terms of the senior high school that should focus only into practical research. So that is actually all about the research study format. If you have queries or questions with regards to that one, just do not hesitate to contact me in our group chat. Okay, so that will be all, class. I hope um this discussion will really help you in coming up with a good research study. And I hope that you will going to collaborate and cooperate with all the members of your groups. So for now, thank you so much and God bless.